All right, our correspondent Shubhendu Ghosh is joining us to get us more. Shubhendu, good morning. We've told our viewers about the European leaders pledging to provide and help in maintaining financial assistance for Ukraine, but they fell short of zeroing in on a particular plan on how that will be executed. What more can you add to it?
Good morning, Preeti. It does look like a double setback for President Zelensky of Ukraine. First, his expectation of getting Trump support, President Trump of the US support for the Tomahawk missiles did not work out. And now the expectation that these Russian frozen assets could be mobilized to fund Ukraine in this conflict have also not materialized, although the decision has been postponed to December. It will be taken up again. But for now, both in terms of the resources and the advanced ammunition to continue the fight against Russia is something where President Zelensky has received a setback. Making the frozen assets, Russian assets available to Ukraine was never going to be easy legally. There were these litigation-related issues that Brussels in particular was jittery about. It wanted assurances that should some litigations come up in future, years ahead, the countries of European Union must come forward to participate in supporting that. Shouldn't be the Brussels concerns alone. So those were some finer points where the decision could not be worked out. And what did work out was a sort of blanket statement that the financial needs of Ukraine would be taken care of. All is not lost. You mentioned about the Friday summit in London, which is once again going to be focusing on strengthening the hand of Ukraine. We learned the focus could be on providing the access to long-range missiles, which could be of a great strategic advantage to Ukraine at this point in the conflict, where it is not just about making certain headways against Russia, but also getting an upper hand as far as the negotiations are concerned. So in all these respects, what we'll have to wait and watch what comes out of the London summit. But so far, his engagements with European Union and the White House haven't yielded the results that he would have expected. Preeti?
All right, Shubhendu, the conflict started in 2022. For the benefit of our viewers, help us understand what next when we talk of the conflict. Which way is it headed to?
Well, Preeti, as you mentioned, it's been over 3 years. The conflict has dragged on. We've seen dramatic gains made by both the sides, Ukraine and Russia. As we speak, it is Russia which, at least on the ground, militarily appears to have an upper hand over Ukraine. It has made important gains in much of eastern Ukraine, the Zaporizhia, Luhansk, Donetsk region. That is also the region that President Putin of Russia would like to transform into some sort of a buffer zone. That is something that he had forwarded in the negotiations. He would want the Ukrainian forces to actually step back from that region. President Donald Trump suggests that the battle lines be frozen, but that's easier said than done. The forces of Russia and Ukraine are fighting in each other's territory. It would be very difficult to freeze and think of a ceasefire in such a context. Therefore, the ceasefire looks complex. Also, the kind of support that Ukraine had enjoyed in the initial years of the conflict, both from America and the European Union, is becoming complex now. We know President Trump and the kind of investment that he wants to make into this conflict. Although one of the first major interventions against Russia came up just a couple of days back when President Trump announced those major sanctions against the leading oil companies of Russia. He hopes that would put some sort of brakes as far as Russian war machine is concerned and bring both sides on the table for negotiations. But for now, the kind of the kind of posturing that Russia and Ukraine have been doing, a ceasefire negotiation at the moment seems difficult, and the conflict, meanwhile, Preeti, drags on.
All right, Shubhendu, also help us understand to what extent would this reparation loan, how will that be implemented? Because we tell our viewers that the Russian assets held by Belgian financial institution Euroclear to fund a loan of 140 billion euros for Ukraine. To what extent is this possible? And also, we're talking of the sanctions by the Western world on Russia, which over the past 3 years, as the conflict drags on, has not been able to deter Russia when we talk of the conflict. So put all this together, how are both Russia and Ukraine, respectively poised when we talk of this conflict?
Preeti, if you talk about the reparations first, well, that measure hasn't really worked out at present. At the Brussels summit, there was expectation of some sort of forward movement in favor of Ukraine, when about 140 billion euros of frozen Russian assets in this institution that you mentioned, what it does is it's a storehouse of international financial infrastructure, including those of Russia, Euroclear, based in Brussels. The idea was to either liquidate or provide loan against these assets to Ukraine. In either cases, it would have meant giving the Russian assets to Ukraine to fight this conflict. Now, because of the legal hassles, because there was no agreement on the manner in which future litigation, if any, would be dealt with. Therefore, this issue is sort of closed for now till December later this year. For now, the kind of financial support that the European Union has been providing Ukraine will continue. And if I were to quote the representative of the European Commission, talks in terms of the financial needs of Ukraine will be met by the European allies. As far as the sanctions against Russia is concerned, Kremlin has clearly said that, one, it had warned against a painful response if this asset mobilization Russian asset mobilization had happened, which has not happened at the moment. Also, the sanctions that the Trump administration has put on the major oil companies of Russia. Russia had also said that it would not be very effective. We've seen in the past the manner in which Russia has been able to stay immune to these major Western sanctions, especially since the beginning of this conflict. But its economy is in a dire state. There is going to be an impact, but it's not just Russia that is going to bear the impact. We've been talking about the global impact of this Russia-Ukraine conflict. And one of the inputs that we saw yesterday was about 5% jump in global oil prices as a result of the sanctions that were put on the Russian oil companies. In the days ahead, we'll have to see the manner in which the rest of the oil giants are able to manage this rise, or else there's going to be more pain for the global economy coming from the energy sector now. Preeti?
All right, Shubhendu, we leave it here. Thank you so much for joining in with those details and that understanding.